Yeah, a lot of good messages from the movies, lot of good messages. Three things that I learned: you'll always find true love if you wait around. Yeah, there's always good things waiting to happen. And number three, single malt always brings cultures together. Right, it always works. I'm going to invite Sikandar Sidhu to join me here. He's the director of the movie Chindia, and Pratima Mani to join us. She is the writer and she also played the lead protagonist in the movie Stitched. Please give it up for them, guys. Let's invite them up on stage. Here's one mic for you guys to share. So what we're gonna do is, if you guys have any questions, you guys can throw it out. I'm gonna start off with some questions here, their perspectives on the movies. So I'm gonna start with you, Pratima, on Stitched. So your thoughts on what you want somebody, who relates so much with the character in the movie. What is your key takeaway for them?
Um, I was just trying to write. We were trying to make a movie that was about what it means to find, like, what the idea of compatibility or building a relationship means when you are used to your identity being in flux. Because this was a movie that was written from the perspective not necessarily of being South Asian American, which I'm not. I've lived in America for 16 years, but I still a lot of American culture, even despite me sounding like this is strange to me. And so it's about, I grew up in sort of the non-immigrant diaspora, the international diaspora, and what does it mean when your immigration status, when you don't have is influx, when you don't really have a hometown, when you are very used to being a lot of different people at once, what does it mean to then try and have enough of a foundation to build a relationship with someone? And so our character, I think, in my head, does approaches it the wrong way, which is to think that compatibility can be gamed, um, and that it's a question of finding someone who can code switch to the ability that she can. And so I think the takeaway is really that, on one hand, for people who've grown up like this, that it's normal to want to find someone who can be as fluid as you, and at the same time, ultimately, that's not really going to work, and it's just a question of effort and compromise. And so, yes, I guess the moral is that compatibility doesn't exist.
Very important lesson. Yeah. Any thoughts on that from the audience? Any questions on those key takeaways? Did you guys relate to it? Do you not agree with it? All right, yeah, go ahead. I saw a hand.
I thought your film was so well written and very well put together, very funny. The animation was great, and I really liked the writing. Honestly, it was really well written.
Thank you.
Congratulations! Yeah, very well written.
I'll take more questions like that.
All right, so we're gonna mix it up. So over to Chindia. So when I saw the name of the movie Chindia, I was disappointed there were no birds in the movie. Okay. But I love the concept. I love that how it's about two cultures coming together. Where is the entire idea coming from? Is this based on something you've seen, a true story, or it's completely imaginary? How do what is? It's all of us, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main idea was like I always thought that India and China were always politicized, and these two countries were put against each other when we have so much in common. Like, these are the most vibrant and the rich cultures that have existed for thousands of years. So we have more in common than what separates us. But for political reasons, they will always try to pitch us against each other. But imagine a world in which we have a Justin Bieber of India and China. That is the biggest capitalizer in the whole world. There's no Warner Brothers that you need to distribute that film. We have 3.5 billion people of Indian and Chinese diaspora and domestic population, that we would not need to go to a production house to pitch something. I think this is something that, like, production houses have understood and have realized. This is why they haven't really when I pitched this movie, the first thing that I was told was China just got their say. India is about to get their say. Why are you jumping steps and going India and China together? Let first Indian stories come, and then you will maybe be able to connect them. But I love movies like Rush Hour. So I would love to make a rush hour with an Indian and an American, or Indian and Chinese set in America. I think like if we were able to bring these two cultures together, like with half of the global population, I cannot believe that we're already not capitalizing on it. And it all is in what, 21% of geological area that half of the global population is. And the power of Bollywood right now, like they're beating some of the highest like Hollywood. Like we got a 1500 crore film that came out, and Amir Khan's movies have performed so well in China. So it is just like maybe we're 5 years ahead of their time, but there is a time where the point of focus of film production is going to shift from Los Angeles to Shanghai and Bombay. And I feel like it's already happening right now. So if this is a proof of concept for a much bigger project that we can do, maybe an action film. So this is why like I thought about it, like I'm not gonna get a $10 million, but can I do a rom-com that can be more contained? So that's where the idea came from.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Let's give it up for that entire thought, guys. Um, the thing I loved about Chindia is there's a lot of nuances, a lot of small things that sometimes go unnoticed. But when the parents met the first time, the teas were different, but also the cups were different, right? The cups on the Indian side were so different. The cups on the, and then just Veer's father learning to use chopsticks faster than any other Indian guy. That won my heart, man. Um, I see the hand up there. Yeah, go ahead.
Listen, you made United Colors of Benetton. You got an Indian, Chinese wife. What have you against black people?
Oh, well, I actually wanted to. There was a scene that we had a very good actor, but we just had to cut for time. But like he was like really good. But then my professor came in and said like you have to kill the darling. So this is a scene that you have. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, hopefully in the next one, if we ever get to make our Rush Hour version, we will have like more people in there. So then I would get a much bigger cast. I would love to work with them. So hopefully in the future.
Sikandar, one question. What were the challenges? Could you talk about some of the challenges you faced while making this film?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge that I have was like people. So when I came here and they were like, well, you can't tell a baseball story about Kentucky because you're from India. So I was like, okay, so I have to pick projects which are like from India, but then because this was India and China, I had to find a co-writer who was Chinese. Because I can only speak for the Indian experience, but I can't speak for the Chinese experience. So we went and we found somebody, Yo Ying, who helped us write all the. So I didn't know about Maltai. I didn't know about like any of the things that we use in the cooking scenes. So we had to find a writer who could bring the Chinese authentic voice. So I'm very happy that I found somebody, and even a cinematographer, Yang. She's also from China. So it was like I'm an Indian guy, and I'm writing a story and I'm telling a story about a guy and a girl and these two families coming from there. If I don't have women in writing, and if I don't have women in, because I have a perspective, but the DP is going to bring her perspective. So I was very happy that I was able to collaborate. And like if you watch the credits, our composer was an Italian composer. Our editor is a Bolivian editor. So they have no idea about India and China. So it was an outside perspective that helped us make it. But the one thing I would say is when I watched Crazy Rich Asians, I thought this is a Bollywood movie, like straight up. Like I could see Karan Johar's title come up. Like I was waiting for it, like made by Sidney Cable and Karan Johar production. So that's when I was like, well, if this movie worked, then maybe we have a common ground here. Maybe if Bollywood is working in America, and if Crazy Rich Asians is so India friendly, maybe we have a common IP here.
Also, this was the first premiere, like this was the premiere of the movie. Yes, here, right
Yeah,
here.
this is the
Yes.
world premiere. Yeah.
So this was the world premiere of Chindia, and where else are you going next? Like, what is the plan?
So I was shocked because we are premiering at the Chinese American Film Festival. It's the only festival outside of China that is run by the Chinese government. So like it was very CCP when I got that email. So like it was in the it was very official. But what I was told was like you're not going to get into China. No way with this kind of content. But when we got into that festival and we were premiering in November, and we were invited like talk to distributors in China. That's when it was like, okay, so it's not China's not a closed market as we are told. Like, if you make something which shows the Chinese population or like Chinese characters in them, you will never get it. That's not the case. So we are going there. We are talking to distributors there. So I'm very happy. We're also in Silicon Valley. We're in Bombay. We're going to be in New York, and we're also going to be premiering this in USC. So this is a spotlight film that USC is pushing because I think 6 graduates worked on this project. So I was really shocked by the Chinese Film Festival. I never thought we will see any distributor from China pick it up. But hopefully this might be the first
Yeah.
American, Indian, Chinese film in
That
English.
sounds amazing. All the best and congratulations for all of those, right? I hear you said you're also going to Mumbai. I'm from Mumbai. And one thing about Stitched, there was this one dialogue where you said, want to buy a flat for my parents in Mumbai, right? And why I say that is because there's so many societal pressures. When you see Kelly, your friend, getting married or getting engaged, all of that runs, thoughts in your head. So it was such a short film, but so many different things were touched. Do you want to talk a little about the societal pressures that you were trying to portray through the movie?
Yeah, I think that was certainly a part of the character, which is when I think, I don't know if this is everyone's experience, but certainly my experience, coming from a South Asian family, is you value community and family very highly, and so, or that's part of the culture, and so something that's always running through your head is someone going to understand that, even if someone isn't used to it, like, can someone understand that and dovetail into that? Because it's hard to say blanket, it's different from culture to culture, but sometimes you do experience those cultural differences, and so that's why we wanted to throw it in there, because that is something, like, you think about all the time. Like, I think about it because I haven't spent my adult life in India, neither has my sister, so those are things we think about all the time. Like, oh my god, what's going to happen when they get old and we're not there, and what's gonna happen? We're like, I'm like, oh my, this is a little bit dark, but we're like, oh my god, we're gonna have to. How does the cremation work? What are we gonna do? We don't know how to do. And those are the things you worry about, and those are the things you hope someone will understand, and you're even more worried about them because you don't feel like you always fully understand them as well. And so that was a small thing that we wanted to put in there.
Yeah. That's that's very relatable, honestly, because I still have my family's back in India, so all of those thoughts. So we made sure we never had our younger brother come here. He's still back in India. He'll take care of. But another question for you: how did we hack the hard drive? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But my question was, there's so much, intricate writing and so much comedy punches in the entire movie. What was the writing process for your, the comedy piece, right? Was just, if you want to walk through with the audience, how did you guys brainstorm on the comedy parts and putting it all together to?
Well, so when I initially wrote this script, it was very dark. So I love dark comedy. Like, Ricky Gervais is my favorite comedian, and I love Dave Chappelle. But then, so when I made my thesis, they told me, this is too dark. So if you want to make a movie that connects with people, you can't make it this dark. Like, my character starts off as wanting to kill himself, and then you can't, you have to make sure that the audiences have a nice time watching the movie, and it's still light enough. So I had to take out a lot of the dark jokes that I had put in, but I worked with my co-writer, and she brought a lot of points from the Chinese culture specifically. And our actors, actually, we had a lot of improvisation on this. So I would tell them hey, so this is what I think. Especially if you guys remember that scene where the Indian parents and Chinese parents come, there was a lot of improvisation that was going on. I was like, why don't you guys use the dialogue that I wrote as this jumping point? This is one point to another point to another point that we get through. But you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a Chinese mom, you're a Chinese dad, you both guys are Indians. What would you say if your kid was in this situation? So I think that's why it is more relatable. And the car scene, we only had one, because we have restriction on budget, we had one shot. So we could only put the camera on the car mount for the day one, and we could only put the camera on the car mount for once. So I kind of told them, this is what I want you guys to get to, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what dialogues you should use. So how about you free ball it? And actors, I know a lot of people are sticklers for it. I think if you give freedom to the actors, they can sometimes bring something way more natural.
Yeah.
And I 100% trusted my actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that really helped me. My actors were really helpful, and they brought a lot to the characters. I think that's why it is more relatable than if I just wrote it. Because I am a guy. What can I write for an Indian mom?
Yeah. Yeah, you would never write single malt for an Indian mom.
No.
That had to come from the Punjabi mom. But no, that's wonderful. Again, I'm going to pause and see if you guys have any thoughts, questions. I see a hand there. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know.
Also, congrats on the film. I thought it's interesting, and first of all, I'll tell a few things that I really like about the film. I thought it has a very consistent look that it maintains from the beginning to the end, and I think it's very difficult to combine in many, independent feature films, and it was very nice to see that. And I also really agree with what you said earlier about distribution and all of that. And I feel like the film, at its core, your heart is at the right place, and we need more of that. Mm, I would like to ask. I don't know if this is a question or is it more something that I want to say. If yeah, how to say it? This is my only gripe with the film, and I think it's better to talk about it this way, and I think that's what also makes film festival discourse very interesting. When you have different views, and I think I'm alone on this, but when it comes to the parents' characters in the film, and I know this is a satire, this is a comedy, I I feel like as filmmakers, as like all of us from like more or less the same generation, um, like our parents, like they are like very like in how do I say, like you show the way they think, and how their flaws, and the kind of backward thinking that's presented in the film from the parents. I think it's there, it's true, but I also feel like it doesn't truly define them as a whole, because I feel like often when we write satire that involves Indian brown parents, it's very easy to take a jab at how how they always perceive like marriage, or how they hold it to like this unnecessarily high degree, which is absurd. But I think like in even when we are writing satire, it's a bit important that we still try to see them as more human rather than caricatures, because you have two protagonists in the film. They feel like people, they feel like real characters. But when it comes to the parents, although they show so many character traits that I can like relate to with my parents, it still feels a bit too much like a caricature, where it does take you out sort of like I think we notice in like YouTube skits 7 minutes, 10 minutes, it might work, but I think after it goes on for a while, a little bit of dimension, a little bit of a different perspective that makes them more human would be interesting. So I mean, I'm someone who loves a good satire myself. I love South Park and Ricky Gervais myself. But I think when we are writing, even if it's satire, even if it's comedy, it would be beneficial if we try to be a bit more rounded on it. But yeah, other than that, I think it's a very interesting film, and I'm glad to hear that it's making its rounds in the festival circuit, because yeah, South Asian representation in Western media is very very low. So
Yeah, so I think the
yeah.
dad I'm going to say is like, dude, you haven't met my mom and my dad. Like, so my mother once told me either stop taking selfies or lose some weight. It's not a hard choice. Like, Indian mothers will tell you exactly what's wrong with your body and everything. She's like, no wonder you're not married yet. You are a filmmaker who left medicine. So, like, our parents are actually like that. Like, my dad once I told my dad that I want to be a film director. He's like, Bete, that's pronounced a doctor. I was like, no, dad, I actually want to be a film director. He's like, Bete, in America, Indians can be either engineers, doctors, or homeless. So for him, I'm homeless. So like, that's where I get the comedy from. But like, cause life is dark comedy, I believe. Like, these characters that I saw, like especially the mom and the dad, that is my mom, that is my dad, like 100%. They're very animated. They never have a filter. They will tell in front of my like so. If there's a family gathering, they'll be like, "Oh, this is cousin number one. He works at Google. This is cousin number two. Blah blah. This is Sikandar. He's a failure." So I know that we don't want to like make caricatures of the characters. This is my parents. Like honestly, I lived with these guys. But the another thing that I want to say is like, so in this movie, if we made them very subtle, we wouldn't have an arc. So that's one thing that I was trying to get to, because the parents are a representation kind of how the societies believe. And there are more liberal parts of India. Like if you go in Bombay and say, my girlfriend is Chinese, they don't care. But if you go to like Rajasthan and you say my girlfriend is Chinese, you will be killed with your family. So it was like, yeah. So it was like we have to make sure that the kids are obviously progressive, they don't care. But there is a generational gap that we wanted to show because the generational gap is what the politics is pushing right now. So it's India versus China, it's we are versus them, and that's how I wanted the parents to come across. But then through the story, they realize that we're not that different, we're actually very similar because we're very similar human beings. And if the audiences, if I tell the audiences they are similar, then they will not be able to relate to those characters. I had to make them kind of polar opposite, and then if it was single malt that brought them together, it was single malt. Or if it was cooking, it was cooking. But I had to show like the character arc so that the audiences could follow along that. Because you guys are a festival circuit, you guys are pretty progressive. You will 100% get this. But imagine this movie in Rajasthan, or imagine this movie in UP, or imagine this movie in Madhya Pradesh. And I'm not saying that we have a better brain or anything. We have come here. We have seen a lot of diverse relationships. But if somebody hasn't seen a diverse relationship, they're very well educated. They're very good human beings. But if they haven't been exposed to that, I don't think we can expect that everybody will get on board with this. So through the film, what I'm trying to do is like India and China, if we help each other, we can actually better ourselves. But if I don't show the characters this polar and I show them very centered, there's no way to go for character development. So I had to kind of like put them here and then bring them here because the kids are already here. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
It's lovely to hear that perspective. Once again, guys, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for you guys, spending time with us, having this Q&A. Let's hear it one more time for Stiched and Chindia. As you guys leave, there is a ballot outside where you guys can cast your votes on how you like the film, 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. If you had a great cinematic experience, please vote. Movies can make to the Oscars based on those votes, so please be conscious in your voting. And thank you so much, Sikandar and Pratima, for joining us. I was your host, Karan Sharma. Thanks all for coming out. Have a good night.